First of all, I finished the game yesterday.
You
So
did. Excellent.
yeah, so I really found the combat interesting. So you are lead combat designer, so I think we're going to talk about combat.
Thank you. Yes, I
And
would love to talk about combat.
I really love FPS games and also fantasy games. So I think that Immortals of Aveum is like the perfect merge between the two. And I found it really, really fun to play through. Like, I finished the campaign in 3 days, so I really, really played a lot, and I had so much fun. So
That's so great to
congratulations.
hear. Thank you. That's water to my heart. Thank you.
So first of all, since the ones that will see this interview probably won't have played Immortals of Aveum yet, um, could you explain how the combat works with your words?
Yeah, it is a fast-paced, frenetic arena shooter at its heart that requires players to make tactical decisions on the fly. And the battle mage element means that you're going to be casting a lot of different spells at any given moment based on the situation and the enemies that you're fighting. But also, you're able to specialize in the spells that you enjoy. So the metagame has you choosing sigils and choosing talents that support and boost the spells that you like. And so your combat experience will be slightly different than everyone else's. If you focus on blue, that means that some enemies will be more difficult for you. Um, and so you'll have to find ways to circumvent those difficulties.
Yeah, so we have three types of magic. And why did you decide to include just three types? And how was the process of developing them been? Because each magic has its own characteristics.
I feel like that was an early design decision that we just have three types of magic. It was really important to the lore. It was important to kind of establish a number, and so we tried it out and we thought it was working really well. And the three types of magic we chose, blue being about hit scan weapons, about direct fire and precision, red being about AoE and powerful explosions and close range combat, and then green having this rapid fire and heat seeking homing element. Um, Kind of hit a lot of those core shooter expectations you might have, like playing a Call of Duty, you're going to have the sniper, you're going to have the shotgun, you're going to have the SMG, and so we kind of hit those major pillars first.
Yeah, so I have to say my favorite one was the green one, but just
Yeah,
because in FPS I love like rifles, so it's more fast and it's easier to use, I think. But I still developed a really balanced character because I used all three types of magic based on the situation and on the enemies, and also on the skill tree. I progressed each magic. But do you think that the game would be approachable with just choosing one and specializing in one kind of magic?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Internally, the combat team and the meta team has tried as probably almost every combination that you can imagine. Um, the intent was that for a player who wanted to generalize and to become a triarch, which is the master of all three colors, you could do that, and you'd have general purpose. No enemy would be easier or harder than they might be. But if someone were to hyper focus onto one spell, they would dominate with that spell, and then find that certain enemies are really tricky. They still have the tools, as you know, because you played the game. You you always have the same kit of spells available to you.
Mhm.
So even when you don't specialize in green, you still have your green fury spells, which allows you to overcome certain obstacles in combat.
Yeah.
And so it still requires you to be clever and to understand the systems, but you are able to. The intent is that you'd be able to finish the game while hyper focusing on one color, and it's okay. I
So,
encourage it, and I want to see people's builds. I'm so excited about build
yeah, me
guides and
too.
stuff. Hearing you say that you enjoyed green is really nice. I'm glad. Can I ask you like which flavor of sigil that you liked, the green sigil?
Which? Sorry?
Which flavor of green sigil did you like? The Seeker Shards, Maelstrom, or Storm Shards?
I used all the way the legendary one, which
Okay.
is like included in the deluxe edition.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I
Great.
maxed it out completely in the forge. So it was really overpowered.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the Storm Shards. That's cool. That's fun to hear.
Yeah, because I had a lot of like ammunitions, if you may say so.
Yeah,
So it gave
it's
me
kind of
the
true.
yeah, it gave me the opportunity to fire more rapidly. And so even with exploration, I could like smash all the chests very quickly without going in and like losing time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like something that was really important to us on the combat team was that every single spell feels good on the click. So, you're talking about the feeling of like rapid fire. I mean, that's super important. And the way that the recoil works and while you hold the trigger down or if you tap it,
Mhm.
that all we went through a lot of polish to make sure that that feels absolutely great.
Yeah, each kind of magic feels great in its own terms, because also red magic, I really enjoy to use that against like bigger enemies, which were red magic themed. And yeah, it was really like empowering, because um, I maxed out my red sigil and it was like 500 damages. So it was really, really strong. So
Yeah,
I could like one shot a lot of enemies by the end of the game. Yeah, I
that's
have to
great.
say the enemies I found the most annoying to defeat were the Archons. I don't know if you
Mhm.
pronounce it like that, and
Yeah.
the Leilodons, like those like snakes, kind of. That was they were really hard, especially the Archons. Like without making any spoilers, the big one. I think I died like 10 times trying to beat it.
Oof. Okay.
And until I found like the right strategy to make some damages.
That's great. I'm not sure if how much I'm allowed to say, but we've seen a lot of feedback. We've seen a lot of plays and we've received a lot of feedback similar to what you're describing. And if I can tell you in our day one patch, we have a balance pass specifically for the Archons and the Lilidons because they were very tricky. And I hate to tell you, but the balance the reason why you probably experienced some difficulty was because you were using green. We found that the
No,
green was a little.
I used the blue ones
Oh, you
with
use the blue one? Okay.
yeah.
Well, never mind. We found that some of the balancing we had done on the green versus the Archon was a little subpar, so we fixed that. And it's a much better experience now.
Well, I
uh,
managed to do it, so never mind.
yeah, congratulations. Yeah, I will say, if you don't mind, if I could just
Yeah,
evolve off of
go.
that. The balance of every fight and the balance of each spell against that fight is really important to us, and we've been tuning it and doing lots of user testing to confirm our designs and then proving that some of them weren't working and then making balance adjustments. And so we're going to continue to make balance adjustments as we see people play the game because we want a really great experience for everyone.
Yeah, so since we are talking about bosses, kind of, how much time did it take to develop just the boss battles? Because especially some ones
Sorry,
were really interesting.
so much coordination with the core combat team, the animation team, the level design team, the narrative team, and VFX team and audio team, all of that, right? And so that last fight, was like throwing everyone together to make that work. And I think bosses can be, like the Archon, like you were mentioning, anywhere between 6 months and 9 months to make one boss fight. We have a dedicated like I've been working on bosses in my entire career. I love bosses. I love Monster Hunter. I love all like large creatures
Yeah.
versus one hero. So I was heavily involved in that stuff too. But we also have a dedicated boss designer and a whole team. It takes a lot, and they're really fun to make.
Yeah, and they're really fun to play too. So that's good. So you
Thank you.
mentioned Monster Hunter, but it doesn't really like it doesn't connect with Immortals of Aveum. But since the game has traces of famous FPS franchises such as, I don't know, Doom, Call of Duty, and many others, which one do you think it's it could be described as closer to Immortals of Aveum, even though it's like its own thing, obviously.
It's kind of it's kind of hard to say. My initial reaction is like the soul of Destiny is there, but it's not like Destiny, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same structure. It doesn't have the same customization. And then you might like talk about, well, the feel and the flow of the game is reminiscent to God of War, but also God of War isn't exactly the right one either. You might there's elements of Skyrim that are very closely in this game, also a beloved game by our entire studio. And then of course Call of Duty, because a lot of us made Call of Duty and play Call of Duty every year. So I think it's hard to say that Immortals of Aveum is like any one game, because a lot of games influenced how this one was created. But I think if you liked 2 of those 5 games, then you might find that this game is enjoyable for you.
Yeah, that's so true, because also like as far as the story goes, it has influences of a lot of franchises. Like I saw Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, even Harry Potter, like it has a lot of influences, and they merge all together in one very original game, which like I found the lore so interesting, and I would love like to see a movie or a book, or I don't know, a lot more things about it, because yeah, I really can't wait to see what you're planning for the future of this game, because I don't think you will stop at one game, because it has
I was gonna say
so much content.
you want to see it, and I also want to see it.
Yeah. So going back to combats, why did you choose to make the ammunitions like infinite, instead of making it possible to run out of them like in other FPS games like Call of Duty?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's really 2 reasons why we decided to go that route. The first one was how much did we want it to feel like a gun? Like there's a certain point where it feels too much like an actual gun. Like if you're loading in like a crystal under the bottom and like shooting it, then the design pillar of a shooter without guns is really important to us. How do we challenge what a gun means? How do we challenge what a shooter feels like? And so the idea of just removing ammo entirely out of it, like a slotted in ammo, was one of the first steps. And also the cadence of gameplay. Like if you have, one of the core designs of Doom is you have a gun with a big ammo pouch, and so you can use it until it's empty. And in those bigger fights, your gun, you're gonna run out of ammo. So you're gonna shift to another gun and do that. And what we wanted was specialization. We wanted you to enjoy a type of magic and really like dig into it. And so we built the game around the idea of being able to specialize, which means that you can't run out of ammo. You have to be able to, you fall back on your favorite thing, which hopefully means that people enjoy the game more because they always have access to their favorite thing. And then we built on top of that idea, like adding in reload times on stuff means that you have a time when you're not shooting it. You have this cadence break, so you have to do something else. Do you get to the point where you're reloading your strike bolt and you toss out some shatter spell to like put people at odds so you can shield up and reload? It all kind of works into this like one of our combat designers, Patrick, talks about it as a time-based economy. Like you only have so much time in a combat, and each second is broken up into segments, and so as you're fighting, you have to make tactical decisions.
Yeah, it's really about coordination too, because when there were a lot of enemies towards the end of the game, I found myself like coordinating perfectly between like normal magic and special abilities and the shield and all the other tools. So I had to use all of them, and it became like
actually, if you don't mind me saying,
game.
that's actually one really intriguing as well, which is by taking away an ammo capacity, like you don't have to worry about that. We can put your focus on using Furies more often, using Blink and Shield on cooldown and stuff, and managing those resources, which is really important.
Yeah, the only kind of ammunition you have is the mana for the special abilities, but you can find it like the life essence. So
yeah. I'm really glad you're this is such a great conversation, because you're telling me you like the game, which is great. Thank you.
And I had a curiosity while I was playing. So you included tools which are like useful during combat. But why didn't you include a tool which could be remnant of a grenade, since some of the green enemies have them?
Yeah, that's a great, I think to answer that question is we did, but they're so far from like, it's on like the on the controller, your right bumper is we for a long time we called it the lethal spell because it's like a lethal grenade. And as we want, we talked about earlier in the interview, the feeling of it feeling like Call of Duty, like shooting a gun and stuff. And we had to like evolve past it to make it feel more magical. So that first the first spell you have called Shatter, right? It sends that thing and explodes.
Yeah.
Well, that originally was a grenade.
Ah,
You
okay.
toss out a spell and it would land and then explode. And it was like, well, this is like too close. So how do we make it more magical? And so, well, we still like the explosion. We want that, like, explosion and corpses flying through the air and stuff. But then we changed the method of casting it. So we created that ground runner thing, the little like tremor that found a destination and then detonated. So I think a lot, at the essence, there's a lot of those familial things like grenades, but they're not really grenades, they're magical.
Yeah.
And a lot of things hit the cutting room floor for various reasons, but we wanted to go with the game that felt as close to a Call of Duty experience, but also was very magical at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. You totally answered my question. Thank you.
Great.
And one last question, but I don't know if you can answer me, but I'll try. Would you consider to include like an arena mode where players are challenged to survive as long as possible, or maybe to defeat a certain amount of enemies, like as an add-on to the single player campaign in the future?
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I hope we can do something like that.
Because when I finished the game, but also while I was playing it, I really would have loved to have like a lot of enemies, like to just fight like hundreds, so yeah, like it would
That's
have
great.
been really, really interesting. So I don't know, that's an idea that came up to my mind, like a new game plus sort of thing.
Well, thank you for sharing your idea.
C'est Giovanni.